Hello and welcome to video 28 version 2.0. Now, why is it 2.0? Well, I'll tell you why. After I posted the original video, I got a comment from a viewer named Donald. And Donald said, why didn't you use rectangles to make your building? And I thought about it, and then I smacked myself on the forehead and said, you dummy, why didn't you use rectangles to make the building? The problem was I got so focused on trying to show you how to use lines to make an object that I completely forgot about the most obvious thing, and that's using a rectangle. So to those of you who've already watched the other video, I'm going to apologize because I'm going to make you watch it again. But it's comments like that I appreciate because, like I said, sometimes I just get too focused on something. I put the blinders on and I'll miss the obvious, or I'll just flat out make a mistake, and I'm always willing to admit when I make a mistake. So if you see something like that, please let me know, and I will just redo the video or re-edit it and put in another portion, and we'll try and make these tutorials as comprehensive as we can. All right, so let's go all the way back to the beginning. And well, for those of you who are watching this for the first time, it's not back to the beginning. But for those of you who are going to watch it again, and I pity you, we're going to go all the way back to where we started in the original video 28. So here we go. So what we're going to do is we're just going to design a pretty simple building. It's pretty much just a rectangle with a roof and then a roof vent. So I went to the Walthers catalog and I found this one. It's the Walthers storage shed on pilings. And it's a nice simple building. But Walthers also included a footprint for this that we can use to help design the building, and that looks like this. So as you can see from this footprint, this building is 7 inches wide and 4.5 inches deep. We don't care about how tall it is because we're not designing a 3D building. So I think this is a good starting point for learning how to design an object. And I'd like to point out that I'm not getting anything from Walthers by including this building in the video. I simply chose this building because it was a nice, easy building to draw. And also, like I said, they included a footprint. So let's get started. So here's the building that I've designed in AnyRail. And you'll notice that I have just used a 1 foot square area to design it. It's not a very big building. I also have 3 layers over here. I have building outline, main roof, and roof vents. And that just helps us in our design because we can turn various items on and off as we try to align them. And then when we save it as an object, AnyRail will flatten all those layers down to 1 layer. Now I'm going to put the footprint over here in the corner so we can refer to it. And you'll notice that it's 7 inches wide and 4.5 inches deep. So we can set up a fairly easy grid for that. In fact, I'm just going to set up a 1/4 inch grid because then the snap points are kind of large and we don't have to worry about zooming in and trying to get it to snap to a smaller snap point. So let's go up to settings. We're going to go over here to measurement system. And I'm going to go to English fractional units. And when I do, you'll see that my precision is set to 1/16. And my snap to grid is set to 1/16. But we're going to change this. We're going to make it a 1/4 inch. Now I can type 1/4 for 1/4 inch, or I can type 0.25, hit enter, and AnyRail will convert that for me. So now we look at our drawing area here. And I said this is a 12-inch square. So each one of these smaller squares is representing 1/4 inch. Let me zoom in just a bit. So what I like to do, and this is how I showed you to do it in how to design your room. I started in 1 inch in on the X and 1 inch down on the Y. That means I have to add an inch to all of these dimensions up here. So instead of being 7 over here, because it's a 7-inch long building, it's now at 8 inches. Okay, let's start designing our building. I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to grab this guy, and I'm going to drag him down, just like that. And I'm just going to let him snap to a point, just to get him out of the way. Let's zoom back in. Okay, So we need to make a rectangle that's 7 inches wide and 4.5 inches deep. So let's go up here to Insert, and we'll type in our dimensions. So we want it to be 7 inches wide and 4.5 inches deep. Now I did 4.5. I could also do 4.5 like that. So I'll come up here, I'll hit Add Rectangle. I'm going to put my mouse here because when you insert a rectangle, your mouse is always at the center of that rectangle. All right, now let's move this guy up to here. So we want to put him at 1, 1 for our XY. So I'm going to select this corner. I'm going to come up here and I'm going to select Move Surface because I want to move the entire object, not just that point. And we're going to type in 1 and 1. And there we go. Now we have the outline of our building. Now, one of the problems with doing it like this is you'll see that there's a color inside your rectangle, which makes it hard to see your grid lines when you're aligning things. So we're going to select the rectangle. We're going to come up here and we're going to go to Transparency, and we're going to turn it all the way down so that we can see through our rectangle. And there we go. We now have the outline of our building. Okay, now we need to add the roof. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use 2 rectangles for the roof. And the reason I'm going to do that is I want that center line, and I don't want to draw that center line. I can do it with 2 rectangles. So let's go over here to Main Roof, make that our active layer. Come up here to Insert. We want it to be 7 inches wide, but we want the height to be half of the 4.5. So we're going to type in 2.25, 2.25 inches. Add rectangle, come over here, and there it is. Now we need to place this up in that corner, so we'll do the same thing. We'll come here, we'll select that, make sure we're on Move Surface. We're going to go 1, 1, enter, there it is. Now let's select that and make it a different color. So I have this kind of magenta color or something down here. So let's go up and select that. And there we go. Now we need our other half of the roof. So I'll come down here, select the roof we just put on. I'm going to do a Control C, come down here, I'm going to do a Control V. Now I want to get this guy to line up. Now I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to come down here, I'm going to look at this point down here. And if you look up above, it says the X is 1 and the Y is 5.5. And the reason the Y is 5.5 is because our building is 4.5 inches deep and we're 1 inch down. So that makes it 5.5. So now I'm going to come over here. I'm going to select this guy. We're on Move Surface. I'm going to go 1 for my X and 5.5, 5.5 inches for my Y. We now have our roof in place. Let's take a look at that image of the building. So here it is, and it has a little ventilator here on the top. It also has some loading doors. Now I'm not going to worry about the loading doors for this drawing because I really don't know where they are located. If I had the actual building, I could put them in precisely, but I don't. But we can guess on this ventilator. So looking at the footprint, that ventilator looks like it's about 3/4 of an inch in diameter. So let's put that in. So we will come over here now and we will put it on the roof vents layer. We'll make that the active layer. We'll come up here to Insert. Now, half of 3/4 is 3/8 of an inch. So let me put that in. And we'll come over here and we'll click on Add Circle. Now, if you haven't seen my other videos, you always have to put in the dimensions of your circle or your rectangle before you click on either Add Circle or Add Rectangle. So let me click on Add Circle here, come down here, and there it is. Now when you're working with entities this small in AnyRail, it gets a little weird about moving them. I can't come up here and just click on it. And if you'll notice, as I move my mouse, I get the 4 corners of the circle, which sounds kind of odd because the circle is actually contained in a box. So I can't grab that and move it. And if I grab one of these and move it, I distort the circle. So what I have to do here is I have to draw a box around it. Now I can move it. And how I will move it is with my up-down arrow keys. So we'll move it up. And now I'm going to use the left-right. I'm going to shift it over. So what I'm going to do here now is I'm going to use my shift key with my up-down arrows. And I'm going to move it 1/64 of an inch until it looks like it's right on the center line of the roof. Now we need to move it over to the center. And how I'm going to do that is I'm going to turn off the roof layer. Just like that. Now we know this is 7 inches, so half of 7 inches is 3.5 inches. We are in 1 inch, so the center here is going to be 4.5 inches. Now if you look down at the bottom on the left, you'll see numbers moving, and that is our mouse coordinates. That's where the mouse is on the drawing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my mouse to 4.5 inches on the X. And now I can see what line on my grid is 4.5 inches. So I'm going to move the vent over using my left-right arrow keys until this little circle here is on this 4.5 inch line. That looks pretty good right there. Now I can turn my roof back on. And there's our building. Now you could draw this all on one layer, but if you wanted to add more detail, it's nice to be able to turn on and off different parts of the building. Because like I said, when you save it as an object, all these layers are going to go away. It's going to become one layer. So get all your detail done before you save it as an object, or save this as a separate drawing and just tuck it away somewhere so that if you want to modify it in the future, you can. Because you're not going to be able to modify it once it becomes an object. Okay, so now we have completed our building, so let's go ahead and save it as an object. And then after we do that, I'm going to show you another way to draw the building. So let's go over here and let's go back to building outline. I don't think that's really necessary, but I'm going to do it anyway. And now let's select our building. Now we'll come up here and we're going to right click on it and we're going to say Save as Object. So now we get this nice pop-up box, and this is where we're going to put all the information about our object. So we'll come up here and we're going to say, well, this is a structure and it is HO scale. We're going to give it a name and we're just going to call it what it is. The manufacturer, we're going to put this into the Walthers library. And for the part number, we're going to give it its real part number. And then under description, we're just going to say this. That looks good. And now we're going to hit OK. All right, now we can come up to User Objects and we can go and open up the Walthers library. And now we'll go take a look for it. And what's going to happen here is AnyRail is going to put this in numerically, meaning we're starting here at 322.807. We have to go to 933.3529. So somewhere down, way down here, is going to be our object. So let me scroll down to it. And there it is, right there. So now let's come down here and let's delete this guy. Make some room and let's open our drawing. And there's our storage shed. So we have just created our first user object. Now if you look over here, you'll see that 2 other people have also made the storage shed. So let's take a look at both of those. Now this one, you'll notice it agrees with our dimensions. But you'll notice that this person put in the doors on this side of the shed, And they also made the vent up here a little bit smaller, and they put that square around it. It gives it a little bit more detail. And this is a good indication of what you can do. You can go for minimal detail like we did here, or you can go for more detail like this person did up here. Now let's look at this other one. Now this one is a little bit larger than ours. Let's scroll down a little. It looks to be the same width, but it's a little larger overall. Now, this may be because they measured over the roof. I don't know. But you'll notice that it just has the line here. It has no other detail, doesn't have the vent or the doors. This one up here, like I said, has a little bit more detail. Now, this person may actually have this building in their possession, and they made their measurements off of the actual building. And that's why they were able to put in the 2 loading doors here. In our case, we didn't have that. We just went from the footprint out of the Walthers catalog. So let me lose these 2 here. This is our new part right here, our new object. Now, one of the things you can do after you have made an object is you can come over here and you can do this on any object. You can right click and it will come up and say details. And here's the details on our object. And it's telling us we did indeed put it into the structure category. It's HO. It's kind of hidden there, but it says HO. There's the name. There's the manufacturer and what library it's in. There's its model number. Here's our description. Here's where it's hiding on our computer. Now, we can share it, we can upload it to the AnyRail site, or we can delete it. So if you make a drawing and you don't like what you've done, you can come in here and you can delete that drawing and then do it again. We're not going to do anything to this one. I'm just going to leave it here in the library, so I'm just going to hit cancel. Okay, let me zoom out. Now this is our working drawing here, and this is the object we made. So I'm going to erase our object, and then I'm going to drag this guy down like I did at the beginning, just to get him out of the way. Let him snap right there. And I'm going to show you another way to draw this using lines and surfaces, and we'll be using the grid snap points for this one. So if you're happy with building your object out of rectangles, you can stop right here. But if you want to see how we could also do this with lines, just bear with me and I'll give you a quick demonstration on that. Okay, we're going to go over this real fast on how to draw an object here using lines. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here and I'm going to start my line at 1, 1. I'm just going to put my mouse close because we have that snap to grid set to 1/4 of an inch. And I can also look down below and see that I'm at 1, 1. So I'm going to right click, I'm going to say add line, and I'm going to pull it over. Now, I can either look down below and go exactly to 8 and let it snap there, or I can pull it a little bit longer like that. And I'm just going to pull it longer. I'm going to right click, I'm going to stop. Now, I'm going to come over here, I'm going to check my coordinates, and I see I'm at 1, 1. I'm going to come over here, and I know I want to be at 8, 1. So I'll come over here and I'll say move point. I don't want to move the line. I want to move the point. And I'll type in 8. I'll hit enter. And there's my first line. Now I have a couple of ways of going on here to build the rest of the building. One way I can do this is I can come over here and I can say add line. Just make a line like that. Come back here and put in the coordinates that I want for this point. So I'd come over here and I'd say 8 and 1. And that connects my line. Now we know this line is going to be 4.5 inches long. We're 1 inch down. So we want our coordinates to be 8, like that, and 5.5. 4.5 plus 1 inch. So we'll come over here and we'll do 8 and 5.5. And then I just continue that way. I don't want to start drawing the line down here because I'm going to grab this point. So I will continue up here and just say add line, pull it over, and just do the same thing. Now because I have my grid set to 1/4 of an inch, I could also grab this line and let it snap into place like that. And I can do the same over here because we're using a 1/4 inch grid. So I can actually count the number of squares. And I can let it snap into place. And you'll notice up above, it snapped in precisely at 1 5/5. And then I just do the same again here. I'd go add line, drag it down, let it snap. Make sure I grab the right one. See how it popped to the wrong line? Let it snap. I'm done. Then I would just put in the center line here. And I'd come somewhere where it looks like it's in the middle. I'd say add line. And I drag it over. Now we know this line is 2.5 inches. So half of that would be 2 1/4. And we'd add in our 1 inch. So we'd want to be at 3 1/4. So let's see where we are. We are at a Y of 3 1/4. So I can just now pull that back and let it snap. I can do the same over here. You can see that the Y is at 3 1/4 and the X is at 3/4. Or I could go up and I could type 1 in for the X. And we're done. Now we can add the roof in 2 different ways. Let's go to the roof layer. I could come up here and I could say insert a rectangle, or I could say add surface. And if I use a surface, I'd do this. Click here, just randomly click like that. And then we'll put this into place. Now you'll notice it is over our drawing here, and we don't want that. So what we're going to do is we're going to select that, and we're going to say send to back. And now our building outline is on top of that. Now another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to shrink down this outline. Because if you notice, my line width up here is set to 1/32 of an inch. And if I come over here, my line width is 1/16 of an inch. And I'm not really sure how that happened, but it did happen. So I could come back here and I could change all of these to 1/16. But I'm just going to change this width to 1/32 so that it matches this. It doesn't overhang our building outline. And now I'll just come over here and I'll grab the corners of my surface and I'll move them into place like so. And before I move this last point into place, I'm going to select my surface. I'm going to come up here and I'm going to say, I want the fill color to be this. Then I'll come over here, I'll grab this. And our building is looking pretty good. And then we'll just come up here. We'll do this real fast. We'll say add circle. There's our circle. I'll select it. And I'll move it over to where it looks like it's in the middle. And we've created our building out of lines. Now one thing I didn't do on the circle is I didn't put it on the right layer. So let's get it on the right layer. There we go. So once again, as you're building this up, it's nice to use layers because if you want to select something, say I wanted to edit the building outline, well, it's kind of hard to grab. If I grab this, let's see what I got. I did grab the building outline that time. I was lucky. Sometimes you can't. So if you can't grab that building outline, you can just come over here, make that your main layer, turn off the roof, and there you go. Now you can edit that building. All right, let me add in another line here. I'm not going to put it onto any particular grid point. I'm just going to come up here. I'm going to say add line. I'm going to pull it over. I'm going to let it snap to there. Now, I can continue drawing a line like that. but you'll notice I don't get any XY coordinates up in the left-hand corner. I only get them down in the lower left at the mouse coordinates point. So I have to come up here and I'd have to say, okay, my Y is 1/2 inch. I need to go down 4.5 inches, so I need to pull this down to 5. And I'd be looking down in the lower left, and I try and find 5. I may have gone too far on that. Let's see. Yep, I went to 5.25. So it makes it a little difficult to do it that way. But you can. And you could continue on that way, drawing all the way around by looking down at your mouse coordinates. Or we're going to take this point here, and I'm going to right click on it. And I'm going to say add point. So I'll grab this endpoint. And now if you look up to the upper left, you'll see you have your XY coordinates. Makes it a little bit easier to see what you're doing. So I'm just going to let that guy snap onto that line. I'm going to stop drawing. Now it says resume drawing here. It's kind of like add point, but when you use add point, you get your XY coordinates. If I come over here and I say resume drawing, I don't get those XY coordinates. It's just the same as if you were going along and drawing like that. You'd have to look down to the lower left. So there you go. Another way to draw your building. Actually, I think the rectangle method is the easiest and quickest and probably the one you're going to want to do. The line method is if you really, really want to get detailed in your drawing. But I think most of the drawings we would crank out for AnyRail, we would be using the box method. All right, let me give you a preview of the next video, and it might be 2 videos, I'm not sure. Hopefully I can work it into one. In the next video, we are going to assume you want to make a more complicated drawing. And for this example, I'm going to assume that you have found a building, a real live building out there, 1-to-1 scale, and you want to make a model out of that. And then you want to make a drawing to put on your railroad. So I'm going to use this building here. Now this is a good sized building, and I will tell you a little bit about it in the next video. Don't concern yourself with what it's showing in the interior here. We're only concerned with the outside. And as you can see, it's got 2 loading docks, so you could have one for rail service and one for truck service. It's got a couple of entryways, some stairs, and a few other details that we'll be putting in that will make this building kind of interesting. And for the most part, we're going to be constructing it out of rectangles. So for right now, let's take a look at our object that we designed. Let's gaze upon its beauty because I think we did a pretty good job. And I'll see you in the next video.